But let me tell you, when you're there on the site, seeing these dinghies put together by these organised criminal gangs, which are clearly not safe, and when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies, and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Did he really just say that? Did he really just try telling the British people that all illegal immigrants coming here on boats are women and children? Maybe he'll try telling us the world is flat next. People have different opinions on Zia Yusuf, some positive, some negative. I know, personally, I wasn't happy about what happened between him and Rupert Lowe. But here he smashed it and absolutely destroyed the Labour MP. I wouldn't change a word of what he said. Labour said they are closing down the asylum hotels. We all know that just means they'll be going into newly built houses instead, straight to the top of the queue. They're probably sending Dulux paint brochures over to France as we speak, so the illegal immigrants can make sure their nice new houses are already decorated to their liking when they arrive. He asked Yusuf to explain what he meant when he said Labour put illegal immigrants before the British people. Yusuf brilliantly explained how this Labour government are already evicting veterans so they can move illegal immigrants into those houses. The Labour MP went quiet after that, and he didn't deny it. How much disregard and contempt for your own country and its citizens must you have to be able to do that? Anyway, listen to the full exchange for yourself.
On the other side of the coin, can I just say something which I'm sad to say I think is now controversial in our political debate? I did a visit to the Border Security Command in Dover a few weeks ago to see what we were doing to process these applications, to return people that are not allowed to be here, to make sure that you're catching people trying to come in when they shouldn't come in. But let me tell you, when you're there on the site, seeing these dinghies put together by these organised criminal gangs, which are clearly not safe, and when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies, and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Hang on, you're saying that's not true.
No, look, this is why it's controversial.
Is it true or
I'm saying it's not true. Now, and I'm saying that this is controversial for a reason, and it's not. You're told not to challenge the audience on question time, but I'm going to. So let me tell you this story. When there are babies and children put into that position by human trafficking gangs who are coming across in the Channel with skin burns from the oil from those boats mixing with the salt seawater, I would ask any of you to look at those babies and children and say, go back where you came from. It is right that we are there to help them. It is right that we are a country that respects our human rights obligations, but it is also right that we should have a border that is functioning and an immigration system that is functioning. It was left out of control by the last government.
You know they're coming from France.
And we're going to go...
You know they're coming from France.
We're going to take control of it again. It's right that we take a humanitarian response for those people who are put in those positions, and as the government's policy states, dealing with the criminal gangs who are exploiting vulnerable children to use that route, and then tackling the people who should not be using it and making sure that they're not staying in this country. You can do both of those things without politicising it in the way that you do.
Zia.
Well, in my previous answer, I made the case that this government prioritises foreign citizens over citizens of the United Kingdom. After that testimony, I can rest my case.
How do you rest that case?
So number one, well, you were just talking about it. So number one, the vast majority of the people making the journey from France by small boat are fighting-age, military-age males, not women and children. That's the first point. And I don't know if the BBC real-time fact-checkers are working this evening or not. They seem to be when I speak, but let's see. That's the first point. The second point I would make is that, you know, we're talking about asylum hotels and Rachel Reeves saying we're going to shut down asylum hotels. There was a report today that this Labour government is not only renting hotel spaces, they're actually going to buy hotels at the taxpayers' dime. Can you just categorically deny that that is the case, that this government, this Labour government, is spending taxpayers' money purchasing hotels in order to house illegal immigrants and asylum seekers?
We own government...
Well, yes,
I'm answering your question. We own government-owned temporary accommodation for when people are waiting for a decision. That is true, but...
So you're not buying any more?
Well, we've had to buy some to get out of hotels, but it's temporary accommodation. It's cheaper to do it that way. But look, when you say that this means that the government is prioritising foreigners over the British people, you have to explain what you mean by that.
OK, let me explain what I mean.
True.
I spent many weeks in the constituency of Runcorn and Helsby. Runcorn is a very deprived area. And do you know the issue that exercised people so much and why you lost that seat with a massive swing to Sarah Pochen? The reason is primarily because of HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy. So not the actual hotels. In an unholy alliance of Serco and Yvette Cooper, the Labour Home Secretary, illegal migrants are being deposited into communities where there's no say for the local people about it, people from alien cultures. There's a lot of crime as a result of this. And what takes this to Bond villain levels of wickedry, there are Section 21 eviction notices being given to British tenants, including, and in my inbox I have examples of veterans, including one who is suffering PTSD, who received a Section 21 eviction notice because Serco, at the behest of the Home Office, at the behest of Keir Starmer, is offering 5 to 7 year contracts, 20 to 30% above market rates, to house illegal migrants and asylum seekers. And as a result of that, British people are being turfed out onto the street. There's nothing about that that's remotely acceptable, and it's why the social contract in this country is hanging by a thread.
So, Zia, just be clear, because one of the things that your boss, Nigel Farage, has talked about is sending... If they come over on a boat, and you refer to it, Simon, if people come over in a boat, you turn it around and dump them back on the beach in France. Practically...
Impossible.
How would that happen? How would you persuade the French government to accept that?
Well, number one, you might ask them what they're doing with the £400 million of British
No, I'm asking you a different question. How would you persuade the French government to accept that?
Well, I just answered you. The first thing I would say is, can we have our money back, please? That would be the first
you
point.
How would you persuade the government to accept that?
So listen, there's a number of points here to be made. Firstly, you have to take away the incentive. That I agree with. You have to leave the ECHR. That I agree with. It'll never happen under the Tories. There's a reason it never happened is because the vast majority of Tory MPs
Hang on. I've asked you a question here. Please answer it. How would... It's a central part of your policy, as I understand it. You turn the boats around and deposit the people back on the beach in France, and France would just have to swallow that. How would you persuade them to do that?
Well, listen, I will say this. If the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is unwilling to have an extremely difficult conversation with the leader of France about the sovereignty of our territory, which is basically being overwhelmed and overrun on a daily basis as a result of the Channel, I don't know about what the Prime Minister would be willing to have a difficult conversation.
OK, so you don't know if you'd managed to persuade them or not. You can't be sure. Let's hear from our audience. A lot of hands up. Lots of hands up for lots of questions. This is absolutely great. Man in the shirt there, yeah.
Human rights are human rights. Shame on you all. Shame on you for ditching it. The only way to sort immigration out is for you all to get together with all other countries to sort it out at source. There's people dying all the time.